Hey folks, this is Ben Gessel. I'm just watching The Untouchables for a bit. It's a great movie. I won't go into this very much right now because this is not a movie review. But by all means, you guys should see it if you haven't seen it. Anyway, so um, I'm gonna I'm just powering up my phone here, and still needs to power up quite a bit more before I make another video if I go outside. So I do apologize. I was planning on going on a little walk while making a video, but that might have to wait till a little bit later, maybe even tomorrow. Very low in juice here, um, so I've been thinking a bit about what other people see in me. It varies, of course, from person to person, of course. But the nature of my thoughts have something to do with what it is that I do best and who I am. Not a knowledge of who I know I am, but more a knowledge of who I am in regard to how other people view me. Especially because, as you guys know, anybody with integrity and perception, greater perception, will see things more accurately than other people, more truly. So obviously, it's those folks, seeing everything, good and the not so good. It's those folks that I take infinitely more seriously regarding how they see me compared to everyone else. But I mean, you do hear things, and when you're younger, you don't have sometimes the wherewithal to discern all of this stuff as much, in a way. But you always take things a great deal more seriously from folks who are older, but you don't always take into account someone's character when they themselves are saying things about you and your character. And then, of course, there's a side note. This is one of the problems with online socializing, and one or another to one extent or another, because people just don't know. A lot of times they just try to know you from your videos, and if they're not very perceptive or they're just kind of messed up themselves, they're just gonna not get you. So yeah, I'm just thinking about um, who I am, not regarding what I know, I personally am. All the unnameable things, a lot of times it's an emotional thing, but it's how other people, it's what other people see in me, who have better character again, and who are more perceptive, also. Um, and how do they see me? How do people see me? Most of the time, people don't have never said to me what they think of me. And if I make another video later on, it'll probably go over more like skills and career things and that sort of thing, which will tie into what I'm talking about here. But most of the time, people just don't. And I'm assuming I know this is the case for everyone else. Most people, just often don't feel comfortable telling you or telling me, telling anyone, whatever. Most people aren't very comfortable being very direct about these kinds of things. Obviously, because they don't want to hurt your feelings or all kinds of other similar reasons. But this is the kind of thing that many of us want to know if we value some other person. Um, dramatic, here, dramatic scene. So, but some people, everybody's different. Some people want to know these things more than others. It all depends on the nature of the person and the nature of the relationship, I guess. But um, because we're all in this boat, more or less, because many people will often not tell us what they would think of us, we and we have varying feelings about how important it is to us what other people think of us. You know, some of us think about this a great deal. Other people don't think about it very much at all. And there are varying ideas, thought processes regarding how good or not so good that trait is. But it can go either way, of course. It just depends on, it all depends. These two cops, by the way, are just duking it out. They're fighting. That's all that's happening. Anyway, so it's a little bit rough and tumble. So anyway, I, you know, to be honest, I honestly think most people have either got erroneous ideas of me, somewhat, or what I've talked about and what I've said to them, they're very impressed with, but they weren't always entirely sure what to make of me. Other people knew I was very intelligent and all these other things. And you hear the words, right? You hear the words, but you don't always hear the intent. You don't always. There's an emotional dimension that was often something that I didn't always fully understand about how other people saw me when I was younger. I felt emotion, but I didn't always, sometimes very strongly, but I didn't always pay special attention to it, I suppose, depending on the nature of how I was feeling at the time. But I also, it's complicated, but in a way, yeah, Al Capone. Robert De Niro did a good job on this, by the way. Very good. So, so I've also noticed that, it's always older people much older than I have been, that have seen me more truly and accurately. My peers have been wildly inaccurate sometimes. I'm not saying this is a morally bad thing. I'm just saying it's just the case, the way things have been. And those peers I've had who have understood me better generally are they themselves a great deal more perceptive and often, not always, but often have better character. People will always see some things in me, I think, that are true. But they often won't see everything. Or they won't, and I can feel, upset by that. I want my peers to understand me better. This was very much a big deal, especially when I was younger, but it still is something going on there. But it's just, and the crazy thing is that there are many older people much older than me, that still didn't see many qualities I had, and that often can be due to arrogance, and that can be due to a number of other factors that aren't always a person's fault, but it can be. But yeah, there are there are limitations, and believe me, I hunger oftentimes for the feeling of being more, let's say, emotionally embraced by people that I ought to be more around. That's the best way of putting it. I don't know how else to put it. And one of the great sorrows of my life is not always being in that situation. The closest kind of thing in that regard would be, my family, and maybe there's been other times, other people that I've kind of come somewhat close to that, but not quite like on the level of my family, and not. It's complicated again. It's a complicated thing, but you get certain emotions around certain kinds of people, and you can't deny that those emotions are very real. And when you're not often around people that are you feel especially amazing around, you know, it can be tough, very tough. And but a lot of people have many wonderful qualities. Um, majority of people are at least fairly pleasant to be around, in my opinion. But there's a smaller number of people that you can feel amazing around. Make of that what you will. But I do pick up on how I feel around different people. This is a kind of intense scene. One of the anyway. I don't want to spoil it for you. Um, so that all being said, it feels great to actually mention this stuff in this way. But it sucks to wait. It always stinks to have people far older than you who understand you better, and have your own peers and people that are younger than you not get it. Vast majority of the time. But I know that there are people out there that are dealing on some level with similar situations, in this regard. And let me just put it this way: when someone, especially online, has ever mentioned anything about me, what I'm like, 99% of the time, it's actually I'll put it this way: about 75% of the time, there's nothing much to it, or it's ridiculous and false. 20% of the time, it's nice. And a great deal of that 75%, by the way, is not negative. It's not negative, but it's not really very thoughtful. Not especially thoughtful. It's not as deep, but it's not especially negative. So we can put that in 2 or some kind of like 25% unkind, 50% okay. A lot of the okay is just kind of juvenile, but so there's a 5% that is always the case. It's people that really do get me at a deeper level, even if they know me online. And I truly wish that everybody was 100%. If everybody was really deep and really amazing, I always wish that in my life, but it's just not the case. I never expected anybody to be more mature than they are, or to somehow have faculties that they don't currently possess. That's ridiculous. That's too much to ask, I think, at least for this life, for most people to be. I would love it if everybody was more righteous, including myself, and that's the right way of being, is righteous. But I can't force anybody to be that way as well. Which those things can help, in so many areas. When you're more of a righteous person, people will feel more joy around you. I mean, real joy and peace. And it's something you can't fake in any other way. And it's, and so we lament wickedness. We lament wickedness in our own lives as well as wickedness outside of our own selves. And even if we're not aware that it is wickedness that we're lamenting, it really actually is wickedness. We can talk about how some people are not very mature, not very perceptive of other people, and that can be frustrating. Or, one of the classic things I have encountered was beautiful women that aren't very deep. That's a real common train of thought with many young men, and it can be the other way. You go the other way. I suppose. Um, that's a very big thing that happens to so many people, and often it's, it might be that someone is especially deep and especially aware of us, but maybe we're not as attracted to them physically. That's another big thing, right? Or, maybe we're not sure. We're kind of in the middle somewhere. We're kind of attracted, kind of not super attracted, and we don't always know what love is, and we don't always all this stuff. So yeah, I mean, like I can't. I'm sorry, folks. My train of thoughts sometimes a little bit going a few different directions here. If the movie is like good, whatever. This is one of those movies where, anyway, it's a good movie. But the thing is, yeah, you can't force these things in other people. You try to move and find, you try to find other people. You try to whatever, and you know, it's amazing when you can find people that you really like a lot more. But or they see more in you, and you feel more emotionally accepted. You know, you feel more like you're at home. You're truly at home, emotionally and spiritually. But and you only you know when that happens, and who those kinds of people are, where you feel that way around them. Even if you hate them, even if you have issues with them, and I'm not just talking about family, but it's often involving family. Even if that's the case, you still know when you're around people that really get you, really get you deep down inside, and it can be romantic, it can be often in some other way, but you cannot deny when people really truly understand what you're like. So, um, I could probably wrap this up about here and talk about some other stuff here in a bit. But I realized on some level, this is probably what I sum up with. I realized on some level, that the more perceptive I become regarding what I see in other people, regarding how they're seeing me, and as well as how I'm observing them, the more that people become aware that I'm also observing them at this higher and higher level, the more astute I become, the more shrewd I become. And I might still not understand some things as well as I understood. Well, I'd like to understand it. I might still not understand some things socially as well as I would like to understand them. But the more that the more that I'm talking about adults here, especially middle-aged and older adults, but all adults. The more that adults become aware that I am perceiving them, and what's really going on with how they're seeing me, much more keenly. I've wondered if I never, it's the thing is, it's often facial expressions because people pay attention to facial expressions and things and their moods, but um, if I were to go back to retail, which I wouldn't do, but unless I was forced to, ever, but compelled to, but let's say I was around, and often in retail you're just doing things so fast that you don't have time, wherewithal to really always observe someone very keenly. But if I were to go back in time or chat with anybody or see people that I knew when I was younger, or if I were to with my own facial expressions, make it more obvious that I was really seeing or scrutinizing someone's character and personality much more keenly, right? If I was a little bit more direct in my gaze, without being, you can be direct, but not, it's a light in the eyes. It has to do with the soul, But if I was really and very intently looking into someone's soul, that kind of thing, without judging, right? You're not without anger, no anger, just observation, cold hard observation. Um, but yeah, my gaze was especially direct. I know that people don't like that in general, so that's why I tend not to do that. And I also tend to not really always want to see all the uglier things about people. That thing as well. But it is true that when a person, it depends on the person, but there are people, and I'm talking about the apostles in particular in my church, apostles and prophets, but there are people that have such exemplary character and have such a razor sharp intellect that yes, they can look right into your soul, and you know that they're seeing everything in your soul without a doubt. There are people like that, and I'm especially talking about the apostles and prophets in my church. It's okay. It's just, it's hard to explain the feeling you have if you're looking into the eyes of a prophet of God. But that's one of the feelings that sometimes comes, along with other feelings as well that, are quite remarkable feelings, life-changing feelings often. But you would know when you have that experience. And for many of us, most of us in the world, when we're trying to understand people better, and we're not afraid to see the ugliness for what it really is, even in ourselves or in other people, be it even small or more insignificant or whatever. We don't want to be taken advantage of, but we don't want to make other people feel uneasy just because we're being especially observant. That's always been a big deal for me emotionally, and I've always felt looking away from someone helped someone feel more at ease, because if I was always looking at them very directly, even if I wasn't staring right into their soul, so to speak, to the limited capacity I have to do that, if I was looking right directly into their eyes, the more observant I was, the more that person might feel like it's kind of like someone invading your home in a way. In a way, people want to put up walls and boundaries. All of us do, because we want a lot of things to be kept private. And the eyes are the window to the soul. And when someone feels like that, the privacy of their soul is being invaded, so to speak, that can be an uncomfortable feeling. Most definitely. But a lot of people will get the wrong idea about that. So I've never done that, or I generally don't do that. But it generally comes off as being aggressive or unnerving, I guess you could say. Most people see it that way, and they'll want to avert their gaze. And then a lot of people aren't sure what to make of if someone was just staring at you, especially if they had more of a malicious intent, or if their soul was darker, whatever. That's often what is that? Well, that's often a more frightening kind of idea, right? It's more of a frightening situation, depending on the nature of that person's soul. And it's along with, we pay attention to all the physical things, and are they an evil clown, or are they a demon, or but when push comes to shove, it is the eyes that are the windows to the soul, and it's sorry, it's a really intense part of the movie. I've seen it before, though, so it's not a big deal. But the thing is, yeah, I mean, like if you have some well, everybody's going nuts about pedophilia these days, but if you have a real pedophile, or a especially evil person who's staring right into your eyes and soul, not soul, because there's a limit there, but you have a very intelligent entity who's very bad, who's just staring at you. You're not aware at first they're staring at you, but then you notice that they're staring at you. That can be a very unnerving kind of thing. Sure, the more intelligent that being is, the darker that being is, the more it would be very make a lot of sense that the thing you would feel initially would be fear. And so courage and handling yourself in those situations, and of course I'm hinting at also even experiences with dealing with demons, right? Courage and your ability to manage your own emotions proves with age and um, just experiencing stuff, experiencing hard things, emotionally hard things, spiritually hard things, um, dealing with your fears over time. But when I say dealing with your fears, I don't. Sometimes it's like we feel like we're not like making progress, right? We're not becoming braver. We're still afraid of the same things. That's ultimately up to God to see what's really going on. But I would venture a guess that we're probably making often more progress than we realize. We can just be very hard on ourselves that way, I suppose. But anyway, I'm going a few different directions here. Again, this is kind of a general thought, general vlog, talking a little bit more on a deeper level about a lot of things. But just to get back at staring at people. For some of you guys who have been watching my videos for a while, I have mild Asperger's syndrome. It's not a big deal. But the thing is that there's a lot of confusion a lot of times regarding whether or not to look right into someone's eyes or not. Some people that have Asperger's syndrome more severely aren't always sure when to smile or to grimace or to grin or all these things. And there's a lot of things that we just learn instinctively. There's a lot of things that other people just know instinctively and do that a lot of folks with Asperger's, autism, don't do. And that's one of the big things that defines autism and Asperger's syndrome. It is that. It's facial expressions. And just having that sixth sense about what to talk about with who, and the motor skills and everything. But we're not talking about Asperger's today. This video, just Asperger's now. But it's some people. Well, there is always the train of thought regarding people not being able to make sense of other people that have whatever is going on in their psyche that they don't understand. Or if they do understand, they don't think as well of them, socially or something along those lines. There's still a lot of, people will never admit to this, but there's a lot of confusion that people have about other people in general. There's a lot of, I don't know about, I don't know if I'd say fear. I doubt that it's fear most of the time, but there's a lot of confusion, and most people won't admit to being confused or mistaken, right? People don't want to admit to their faults a lot of times, even something that's a smaller fault. There's a lot of pride in the world still, and that's what it is. It's pride, and I don't know. A lot of times you'll see videos, movies about things like very obvious physical handicaps that some people have, or mental handicaps. And we're always taught that, try to see people as they really are and, be kind. So, there's the more obvious things that we notice about some people and there's always the train of thought of not wanting those people to feel sad and be happy in life, right? There's also the train of thought regarding the more subtle things that often people don't fully get about some people, and they're confused about, but they'll never talk with the person about that confusion because it's an insult to their pride in a way, or it makes them feel. It's just often people aren't sure when to talk about some things with people. That's a big thing in general. Most people still don't know when to talk about certain subjects with some people. They know it's a lifelong process, I suppose. And knowing this myself, that most people still don't get it. Even not just me, it's everybody. A lot of people, but especially people that have these very subtle and difficult to pinpoint things about them. Whether it's it can be any kind of characteristic, really. But we're not talking about someone who has, we're not talking about Down syndrome. Down syndrome is pretty easy to notice. We're talking about all kinds of other things, right? So I think I'm at a pretty good point in this video. I've said a lot of things I think that would be great for you guys to think about. And as you probably know, you guys know already, I tend to not talk about things that are especially always very concrete and easily understood by the masses. That's not what I do at all. And for the people my subscribers, people that watch my stuff, I want to attract people that want to think about things at a much deeper level. They're not content with just the basic stuff. And that's what I try to provide sometimes with my videos. So if you have any suggestions for other content, by all means, you can always leave me a comment about this stuff. It could be anything. But it's always great if it's something that I'm more knowledgeable about or something that I've experienced more in life. It's just something more meaningful to me. So I bid you guys adieu. Leave me thoughts and comments below. Give me thumbs up if you like this video. I don't even know why I have to mention this stuff. You can always feel free to thumbs up if you like it. Okay. Catch you guys later. Take care. Bye.